cold at the touch, dead in the eyes, no signs of life no more. I put your love under the knife. Leave me to die here all alone. No signs of life no more, no. A crying dove may never fly. Black and white. Yeah. Black and white. Oh. 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 Just black and white. Black and white, just let me go. It's only right. For all I know, it's only matter. It's calico, it's black and white. Just let me go. It's only right. For all I know, it's only matter. It's calico, it's black and white. White, white, white. Black and white. Yeah. Black and white. Oh. 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 Just black and white. Black and white.
Hello and welcome to the GRID Engineering GTE Season 1, Round 5 and 6 here at Daytona Full. Bit of a mouthful, powered by NXTGEN. I didn't even get to finish it. But welcome, it's going to be a great event. We had a week off last week due to the fact that a few people weren't around through Easter weekend, and there was another iRacing event that everybody wanted to join in for. So we're here, we're back, we're ready to go at Daytona under the lights as well, which is going to be fantastic. So to get you a bit of a rundown, at the moment they are about halfway through qualifying, and there's got about 4 minutes left of that before we go into a 15-minute race. It could be 15 minutes of qualifying, to be fair, actually. Before we go into a 15-minute sprint race, we do have a championship to keep up with that we weren't necessarily doing beforehand, but now this time around, obviously, for the fact that we are in a couple of rounds in and we have a couple more consistent drivers and everything like that, I thought, you know what, now is the time to bring in the championship, and there is a bit of a fight for the top. So, without further ado, let's have a quick look at how qualifying is going, and then before the race, we'll have a look at the championship. So, as you can see, Martin Brinkworth is currently at the top of the timings. And if I bring you some sound, there we go, that would always help. As you can see, Martin Brinkworth at the top of the timing tower at the moment. But only by 0.09 of a second, less than a tenth in it between himself and Colin Martin, then Michael Seals. So a few new drivers coming right at the front. There's actually a few new drivers full stop, one of which is quite notable. Currently in the pits, though, in 9th place, the eagle-eyed viewers will see Al now in 10th place. Alex Everett and Ian Crosby jumps up a couple of places into 8th place. Alex Everett is broadcasting the iRacing Legends on a Wednesday night and doing a fantastic job with it as well. He's normally used to racing Rally. He's racing Race Room WTCR, XTCR, basically anything that he can get his hands on. Alex is racing, so it's nice to see him actually take part in the iRacing sort of leagues and jumping in here the Ferrari by the looks of it as well. So, who is on pole position? Well, it is Martin Brinkworth with the specced out purple next-gen car there. I'm a big fan of that, no wonder. You can probably guess why. But it's looking really smart at the moment, the SV PMR driver. He's showing good pace, as I said, just under a tenth of a second. The difference between himself and second in Colin Martin. Another SV PMR. Nice to see a few more joining. Indeed it is, Katie. Another one of the SV PMR drivers is the man in second place, Colin Martin. In different machinery, though. Porsches have been the sort of regular, shall we say. They're probably the most commonly used out of all the GTE cars in this series so far. However, there are a few more Ferraris. Alex Everett and Paul Joseph Clist as well, which I believe may well be a new driver as well. He's in the Ferrari, as well as obviously the pole position man at the moment. Then we got David Simon. He's joined in for a little bit of a play. Now he's returning the Ford GT, and I have to say, I'm a massive fan of it. The Fordzilla car, no wonder he's gone for the Ford. It is fantastic. The LEDs on the car are sublime. I remember covering an endurance race which has GTEs in it once, and it came into night time, and it was a 6-hour race, I believe. And all of a sudden, I didn't realise that the Fords had these lovely looking LEDs, and I have to say, they look damn smart as well. I'm not sure if they're programmable to put in different colours, but either way, if it is just purple the only option, well, you know that I'm a fan of that, so I don't mind. Let's have a look at a few other drivers. Matthew Hodges and Miles Owen. Well, there's less than tenths of a second, put it that way. It's 0.005 of a second between 4th and 5th place, which will be agonising for Matthew Hodges, and will be sort of quite thankful Miles Owen, I'm sure. However, he'll probably feel the pressure a little bit as well to try and keep that top 4. He's only less than a tenth of a second behind Michael Seals. So we are in for a right good treat by the looks of it. Nice and close action here at Daytona. Obviously the full circuit. You can see the top right-hand side of the screen. The sort of layout that we're going to be doing today. It does pretty much use all of the NASCAR circuit, apart from about 100 yards, plus the infield as well. And then there's a little chicane right at the end as well, just to give a little bit more of a shake-up for the drivers to help them, you know, try and put some overtakes in now and sort of test themselves a little bit better. We're about just over halfway through this qualifying session. I always make this mistake. It's not a 15-minute session. It's not even it's not a 10-minute session. It's not a 15-minute session. It's a 20-minute qualifying session. And that's to give the drivers the best opportunity to get out there, put some flying laps in, snap some new boots on, and then get out there to try it again. Which is why you see quite a lot of the drivers in the pits at the moment. The top two, you got Michael Owen, you got Miles Owens even, not Michael Owen. Simon, who's just been picked by Paul Scott in the 85 BMW. Consistent runner is Paul. Expect to see him getting a bit closer to the front of the field. He's been performing well so far. Matt Acton is finally out there on circuit in the TCE machine. And he hasn't set a lap time yet. Maybe just waiting to see what kind of the benchmarks are going to be. And maybe letting everyone get their hopes up, because he is currently top of the championship. Speaking of the championship, let's have a quick look at it while these guys are joining in. Just realised that I actually had to add my mic into this scene because I've just made it a couple of minutes ago. Top of the championship then. Matt Acton, he got 20 points with a race win at Interlagos last time out, and then, unfortunately, got a DNF, which meant he is now totaling 62 points. Matt Hodges in second place. Matt got the win there with 25 points, and then, again, DNF'd in the second race, just like Matt Acton. So the two Matts having semi-similar evenings and ended up on very similar points. Only 3 points behind is Miles Owen, who had a pretty poor sprint race, but then the feature gave him the race win, which means he's boosted all the way up into third place. Eric Newman in fourth. Pretty impressive considering that he didn't start either of the... he wasn't there at all. Eric Norden's with 3 points and 20 points. He's in fifth place and 33. Drawing with Paul Scott, who we mentioned before. Thomas Daly a point behind. Sam Holman a point behind in 7th and 8th. Matt Emmons in 9th. And got an interesting experiment with Matt later on in terms of the... how we're going to maybe run the commentary for the feature race, which will be interesting. And Ian Crosby in, 9th and 10th. A little bit further off 8th than the rest, but still a good little battle for maybe cracking the top 10. Lietro, Martin, Smith, Gale, Sivertson, Bland, Seal, and Sigurd are the rest of the drivers that have been involved. We've already seen that Colin Martin is sitting in second place, so expect to see him score some good points and maybe jump up the order. Michael Seal again in third this evening currently, although Matt Acton, he's only set one time and he's already put him into 9th place, so we'll see where he gets put. But again, I expect to see some of these newer drivers jump into the fray and be really competitive. So still out there at the moment is drivers, and it's Matt Acton who we're currently focusing on. Not really surprising considering, as I said, he is top of the standings, and the fact that he's not necessarily put in some major results yet or major pace yet, slightly surprising, I would say. So we're going to keep on board with him. Maybe towards the end of this lap, if he starts one more flyer, which he is coming towards the end, we can go on board with him to see how the Daytona night looks in the Porsche GTE machine. As he comes across the line, it doesn't look like a massively brilliant lap by Matt. And he came across the line and didn't improve there, did he? Well, he did improve, but not by that much. A 140.780. I'll tell you what, look at the difference between not only him and Simon, but more importantly, Simon to Scott. 2,000th of a second to Paul Scott, and with the 1 minute 40. Fantastic by those drivers to be this close. It really sets up a nice close little battle, doesn't it, for the rest of this evening. Miles Owen is out there setting purple times, but he's been nudged out of it by David Simon. That won't be very pleased at all. In fact, no, it wasn't just then. Sorry, he wasn't on his flying lap just then. He was already on his flying lap. He'd already set the time. So that's why he's up to third place, dispossessing Michael Seal and bridging the gap a little bit, because there's about 2.5 tenths to Colin Martin and Michael Seal. Well, now there's slightly less than that. And I tell you what, if you look from Owens down to Seal, less than a tenth. To Hodges, less than a tenth. To Merchant, just over a tenth. Scott, under a tenth. Simon, under a tenth. Actor, it just goes down. You can probably say, I mean, the maths aren't that good, as Matt Hodges goes top with the CXR machine going very well. A 140.041, but again, reiterating how close this field is now. The top three separated by just over a tenth of a second. I'll tell you what, we'll bring up a slightly different... There we go. So on the left now, you can see that the top two separated by less than a tenth of a second. And then, well, basically the top 10 are all separated by a lot less than a second. It's going to be very, very tight here this evening, which I'm all for. I'm here for it. I'm looking forward to this evening. It's going to be fantastic viewing, I am sure. If you're just tuning in, then this is the GRID Engineering GTE Season 1. We are at rounds 5 and 6 here at Daytona. We've already been to the likes of Interlagos. I think we've been at Brands Hatch. All that could be a different series, potentially. But equally, we've been to some stunning circuits. And this is basically the third evening's action, I believe. So that is why we're here for rounds 5 and 6. Going to be cracking Daytona. The season has culminated by a 2-hour stint at Le Mans, where the drivers are expected to team up, and double points are on offer as well for each driver. So let's say there's 25 points on offer for a race win, which there is. If you're at Le Mans and you score a race win with your teammate, not only do you score 25 points each, you score 50 points each. You double it, 50 points each on offer at the finale. So it means you can really shake things up and you can put yourself in a good position going into the finale. But you can only really get there if you work as a team, which is exactly what these drivers will be aiming for, especially the likes of Brinkworth and Martin, teammates obviously for SV PMR. Miles Owens and Matt Acton, teammates for TCE. And a whole host of other drivers. Michael Seal has posted a purple fifth sector, but wasn't good enough to improve. Well, it was good enough to take 4th place away from Miles Owens again. So again, that gap has come right down, but it wasn't quite good enough to dispossess Colin Martin or Martin Brinkworth. So there you go. You can actually see visibly that Michael Seal did improve massively, but only less than a tenth. Only 0.012 separates himself and Colin Martin. If you're excited, then do get involved in the chat. Please do like and share the channel. It helps us an awful lot. It helps NXTGEN as well and GRID Engineering get their names out there. So please do get involved in the engagement on the stream. It would be fantastic. When I'm just sat here on my own commentating, it's always nice to have a few people in the chat to talk to. And also interesting about the feature race this evening, we have well, in fact, there we go, Matt Emmons. I was just about to introduce you. We have Matt Emmons in the interview waiting room, basically. He is going to be driving for the feature race and obviously the sprint race as well. But he said he's more than happy to jump in and have a chat to us whilst he's out there racing. So if he's slightly quiet, if there's not a massive battle going on and he can concentrate on his own, then he's going to definitely jump into the commentary box and maybe spend 10 minutes in it just having a chat to us and seeing how he gets on. None of the drivers seem to be improving on their lap times at all on the final flying lap of this evening's racing. This evening's qualifying, sorry. So I think that the timing tower is probably going to stay in a lot of the way the same way as it is. Alex Everett, hugely quick in a race room touring car. He's hugely quick, massively quick, in fact, in a rally car. But right now, he's not so hot in the racing in the Ferrari, is he? I'm sure he'll get to grips with it sooner rather than later. It'll be interesting to have a chat to Alex a little later on, see how much practice he's been putting in for this. I'm sure after all the action he's been putting into the broadcasting the Legends on a Wednesday night for NXTGEN, he was probably quite keen to try and get involved in some iRacing. And since he's broadcasting, obviously, in that event, well, the GTE series is a perfect opportunity for him. It's all about the toe here, and I couldn't get one, says Matt Evans. That's just why he's sat down in 13th at the moment. The timing tower has ticked over, so we're just waiting for a few drivers to get in on their final lap. Jochen Siggert, I think, has just started another lap, actually. But I don't think he'll be allowed to continue on that one. I'm sure I think they have a 2-minute cool-down period once the checkered flag drops, and they can finish the lap that they are on. Paul Scott, he's one of the few drivers that has actually put a green sector in right at the beginning of his lap, though. It hasn't been so hot since then. So let's see if he can do something about the 5th sector and punch his way up from 8th position up a little bit. As he comes around the final corner, Paul Scott with the pedal to the metal for the final time in qualifying. He comes across the line, and it is pretty good, actually. He puts himself up to 6th place, so that massive improvement in the 1st sector was clearly good enough to jump him, even though he wasn't quite as quick as he had been in the other 4 sectors, which is quite impressive. He must have not got that 1st sector hooked up at all in his previous flying lap, as he gives a little spin there for us. So we're just waiting on Adam Gale and Jochen Siggert. You can see at the bottom, Adam Gale and Jochen have both set green sectors. Are they going to be equally good as Paul Scott? Potentially put them up. Yeah, no George tonight. Yeah, that's a good question, Katie. Yeah, no George. Is it George Bland, I believe it is. So Matt running solo. Potentially why he couldn't get his toe, which is probably actually how Colin Martin and Martin Brinkworth were so damn quick. I think Martin Brinkworth does the... correct me if I'm wrong, Martin, if you're watching, because I think you do the social media for NXTGEN. So it's lovely to have you along. And you guys working well, clearly. Adam Gale comes across the line, and it wasn't... sorry, hasn't come across the line. Jochen Siggert comes across the line. It wasn't an improvement by him, and it doesn't look like Adam Gale fancies an improvement either. So that is all she wrote for this evening for the qualifying. And we can go into the grid for the first time, and only, well, no, for just the first time this evening, to be fair. We have got another race to come up. Come on, Jack, remember what series you're on. Matt Hodges on pole position, Martin Brinkworth in 2nd place, but by half a tenth. Colin Martin in 3rd, Michael Seal in 4th. Again, look how close those 2 drivers are. Miles Owens and Paul Scott 5th and 6th. Dan Merchant 7th, one of the new drivers. Matt Acton in 8th. David Simon in 9th place. Alex Everett in 10th. Adam Gale 11th. Ian Crosby in 12th. 13th is Matt Emmons, followed by Jochen Siggert, and then Paul Kliss rounding out the field for NXTGEN Racing. So, if you're looking forward to this as much as I am, then give a hit like on the stream. We are going for a rolling start this evening. We're just waiting for Matt Hodges and Paul Scott and Adam Gale. Daytona is a circuit that I've covered quite a few times actually now, thanks to the fact that we were covering a NASCAR event on a Monday night for a few Monday nights in a row, to be fair. I've done 2 seasons of it now, and we're actually back here tomorrow. So while we wait for everybody to grid up and get going, I'll do the little shameless plug now. If you are a fan of sim racing, well, tomorrow we've got a bit of a treat for you. I have been working closely with a company called GRID Finder. Those involved with NXTGEN probably are aware of it, since NXTGEN is a GRID Finder league. Essentially, you go onto the website, and if you are interested in racing in sim races, you can go on there, search for your platform, say iRacing, say what kind of racing you want to do, say GT racing, say where you're from, say the UK or the US, but it doesn't really matter, and then it'll pop up a list of leagues that are potentially suitable for you and who are looking to recruit drivers so you can get involved. It's a fantastic website, fantastic idea. And tomorrow we are at Daytona for an invitational event with all the different leagues that are on GRID Finder, culminating together to make a massive NASCAR trucks event. It's going to be super cool. I'm looking forward to it. I've been helping organising it. I will be also broadcasting it. I don't think it'll be on Jacko Racing. However, I am going to try and get it streamed to the GRID Finder Facebook page and YouTube, so I will try and share the links on Jacko Racing. But keep an eye on that. It's 7 o'clock. We're kicking off. I'm very excited about it. So come in. You may see a few familiar faces. You may hear a few familiar voices. I don't think I'll be commentating, but I certainly will be doing the cameras and the production. So come down, give a like on the stream, show the support, and look forward to it. Daytona at night as well in NASCAR trucks. Not much more you could ask for. And if you've never watched oval racing, it's a good opportunity to see how we get on as well, because it can be very exciting. Trust me, it's not just going fast and turning left, although that is a big part of it. I will give you that. Shameless plug over. The safety car comes into the pits, so it'll be Matt Hodges to get them away, and he gets them away nice and early, doesn't he? He doesn't hold around for the lights. He jumps it nicely, and we're already racing, even though the lights haven't gone green, as Matt Hodges races away with it. Colin Martin is up to second place, jumping on his teammate Martin Brinkworth, and then Michael Seal still holding on. Pretty much everybody else has actually done a really good job at holding on to their positions. As I say that, actually, no, Paul Scott is somehow in the infield. I'm not entirely sure how Paul Scott ended up there, but he looked like he just cut the entire circuit as the other drivers were flying off. So we'll have a look at how on earth Paul Scott ended up on the inside. Matt Acton is up 2 places already. He qualified in 8th place. He's up to 6th, following his teammate Miles Owens now. And then there's a little bit of fight with the newcomers of Daniel Merchant and Alex Everett in this 20-minute sprint race. Always think it's 15 minutes, but it's not the case. That's how the PMR Porsche Cup was ran on the previous Next Gen series. Oh, there's a puff of smoke, and is that a spinner? It is. It's Miles Owens. Miles Owens comes out the corner with maybe a little bit too much power going through the rear wheels on cold tyres, ends up spinning them up, but we'll have a look. Matt Emmons has had a crash as well, and he's already out of the race. So we could well actually be having Matt Emmons come into the commentary box a little bit earlier. Oh, look at this though, into the chicane. Alex Everett on the in the Mac. Actually, I was going to say David Simon is in the middle, isn't he? Adam Gale as well, trying to chase up the fortunes that he maybe felt he lost in qualifying. Already up 4 positions into 7th place. David Simon up 1 into 8th. Alex Everett up 1 into 9th. Paul Joseph Clist is up 5 positions into 10th place. And let's see how Alex Everett is going to crack on. In fact, no, because it's already going side by side between Matt Hodges and Colin Martin for the race lead. On the outside, Colin Martin's trying to put the pressure on. A little lock up there by Matt Hodges. It wasn't to be for Colin, and he's going to have to try again in a little bit. Apparently, the toe is a massive advantage, says Matt Emmons in the chat. So expect to see plenty more action like that, and expect to see plenty of people diving into the inside line to try and cover off potential moves. And as we've had the first lap done, David Simon's tumbling. He's tumbling because he's spinning, unfortunately. Again, another driver that we'll have to have a quick look at. Let's have a look and see what on earth happened to Paul Scott, though, because all of a sudden he seemed to overtake everyone. Oh, that just seemed to... Was that a hardware issue? Did the curb grab him and spit him out? Listen. Oh, he just hooked the curb. He hooked the curb and it spat him out all the way to the other side of the circuit. That is why he's currently in 14th place. Matt Emmons then had a bit of a crash. Going deep into the corner there. Is he going to get hung out to dry? Oh no, he just got too much power and then got hit, didn't he? Because he was going a little bit too slowly. Who was that hit him? Let's have a quick look at that one. So he's trying to fly around the outside. Not an unfavourable tactic, I would say. But then, touches the curb, lights up, has a bit of a touch with, I think, Adam Gale, and then the Chevrolet flies into the back of him. Of Ian Crosby, the only other Chevrolet, apart from Matt Emmons himself. Here's David Simon in the Ford Zilla car. Trying to break down that outside line. Jordan Hogan, thank you very much. But again, just spins the rear wheels up. So the GTEs, the lack of traction control, the lack of driver aids, really struggling. Jordan Hogan, come on, Paul Clist, my teammate for Le Mans. Well, Jordan, Paul Clist is doing a stunning job, I have to say, already up to 6th place. Fantastic driving from him. The year 1 driver. I didn't know he was year 1. Or is that just his picture? It's an old picture, maybe. I'm not entirely sure. It looks like he's got SDK Gaming. Is he an Apex driver? Crosby should have gone to Specsavers. Very true. Just having a look as well. Brinkworth with the fastest lap of the race, 140.6. Really good time, and I'll just take the best times away though, and let's have a look at the last times, because that's probably more important. And it was 4/10 quicker for Brinkworth on that final lap, but he's only 4/10 away, and considering we saw him flying around the outside, it's a bit of a shame that he must have lost some time out on somewhere. Adam Gale, let's have a look at what happened to him. He crashed while we were looking at a few of the drivers' incidents. Coming out of the chicane, Oh, going on. Oh, that's slightly odd. How did that car react there? Coming out of the chicane, very odd to see that. Did it just break the tyre? Oh, it was going. He just went over the curb a little bit too much, didn't he? Bit of a shame there for Adam Gale. Doesn't seem to be going his way this evening. No longer part of year one. He races for Next Gen and Apex. Yeah, I thought so. It was a bit of an odd. Hey, I'll tell you what there. It's Adam Gale's still struggling coming out of that chicane, isn't he? Slipstream, toe, everything you could ask for to make an exciting race, and that is exactly what Martin Brinkworth is hoping for here. I can assure you, he's really hunting down the driver in front. But I tell you what, Matt Acton up 5 places, the TCE machine already into 5th. As Brinkworth, as I shoot away from him, Brinkworth got himself into the race lead. They're side by side. We're only 5 minutes into this 20-minute race, and these guys are already swapping positions for the race lead. Oh, looking like sort of hung out to dry, not quite for Brinkworth, but he didn't quite get the inside line. That has scuppered him, hasn't it, somewhat? As Hodges now gets the race lead back from him. Matt Acton, then Dan Merchant, then Alex Everett, and now Miles Owens up the inside of Paul Kliss. Paul's not having any of it, though, is he? He's getting his elbows out to try and make sure that he's in with a shout for this race. He doesn't want to give up any kind of more action than he has to. Yes, it is Jochen Sigert, sorry. Up the inside of Paul Kliss now. So although Paul has done well to gain 7 positions, so has Jochen Sigert up 7 now. And strongly pulling past the Ferrari. But looking up the inside, they're going to go 3 wide, aren't they? Miles Owens is probably looking at his mirror thinking, maybe don't do that just yet. Colin Martin, PC just froze and put me in the wall. Hopefully I'll be back for race 2. Oh, that's absolutely gutting, Colin. Maybe have a chat to you before the end of the race. I was wondering where you were going, why Matt Acton was all of a sudden in 3rd place. But I tell you what, we still can't keep our eyes away from this race lead. There's battles every single place we go. But Martin Brinkworth still putting the pressure on. I'm guessing, Colin, the fact that you're not in this race. Now you'll be cheering him on from the sidelines, won't you? Hopefully, iRacing doesn't do that annoying thing that once you get kicked out of a session, you can't really rejoin because it withdraws you. It's really annoying. Even if you're spectating, you can't do it. From a broadcasting perspective, fantastically annoying because if you make a mistake and then you come out of it, all of a sudden you can't go back in. Matt Hodges, though, still leading the way, and that's a sort of a sentence we're probably going to be saying quite a lot this evening. Thanks to the fact that he's got some absolutely awesome pace underneath him. But the SVPMR machine of Martin Brinkworth will surely be trying to hunt him down. And I have to say, I am a massive fan of the livery on that car. It is mega, really. Very much looking forward to seeing that sort of up close, maybe, in a couple more laps' time. Joel posted, oh no, Paul Joseph Kliss has had an incident. He was just ahead of David Simon by the looks of it. Still trying to track down Jochen Sigert, but he's had 2 crashes for the price of 1 on my incident timer, and he just had too much speed, and then he gets turned around, and oh, well, he gets turned over as well. It's like flipping a pancake. That might as well get underneath it and flip it over, and he has to spawn back to the pits as Paul. That's unfortunate for him. Be interesting, actually. Let's do a little bit of an experiment. I was going to save this for the feature race, but an onboard with Martin Brinkworth could well be very interesting as they hit the braking zone again. The CXR defensive into turn 1. There's nothing really that Martin can do about it. Whether or not it's out of choice, maybe he's going to send a little bit more speed in every single lap to see how his tyres can cope and see if he can brave the move going forward. But at this rate, these 2 drivers are really pulled away from 3rd and 4th. However, 3rd place, Acton was a 10th of a second quicker in the final lap, in the last lap, sorry, and it's only going to get closer, isn't it? It's only going to get closer the more these 2 fight about it. So it'll be interesting as we see a little lock-up from Hodges there. I'm sure that won't help him in the slightest. These GTE cars, very tricky to drive. I'll be honest, I jumped from, when I started iRacing, this time last year, really, I jumped on. I did my road courses in the MX-5, as probably 90% of people have. And then I went straight into the BMW GTE, which was a bit of a baptism of fire, and it did take me a good month to even get the hang of it. Got used to it in the end, but it is an extremely difficult series of cars to be involved with. Huge speed sent into the first apex there by Martin. No wonder he's keeping with Matt Hodges, especially through that sector, because it didn't look like he got the best of exit out the previous corner. Now he's right on the tail of him again in that Porsche. But yeah, it took me a little while, and then they swapped the GTE, the BMW M8, and they brought in the BMW GT4. I started driving that instead a little bit. But I'll be honest, I probably enjoyed the GTE car a little bit better than the GT4, even though I was probably a little bit better with the GT4. Oh, here we go. A huge look over the outside by Martin, but it's still not really close enough, is he? He's going to have to trust Matt a little bit more to actually take that move off him, strangely enough, because I feel like he's running a little too deep, isn't he? He needs to cut back in and run a little bit door to door, wheel to wheel with Hodges if he's going to have any chance of maybe getting that momentum around the outside of the Porsche and trying to pull away into the race lead. Alex Everett, though, and Dan Merchant, as I said before, a little bit of a battle of the newbies here. Tell you what, though, he may be new, but Alex has really put some effort into that car, hasn't it? You can already see his logo on the sort of rear bumpers and on the bonnet above GP box, sorry. And yeah, it's looking smart. You can definitely tell that from a mile away that is Alex Everett. So fair play, it's looking good, Alex. And Dan Merchant as well. I have to say, he's doing a good job. Another one of the new drivers. Not much information on Dan. Maybe I'll have a catch up with him and try and get some information about maybe his history, so we can have a chat about it in the 45-minute feature race. But 11 minutes into this one, 11 and a half minutes into this one, I'm actually having a bit of deja vu, weirdly enough. I feel like I've been here before. Maybe the Porsches were here before, and maybe that's where I'm getting the deja vu from. Adam Gale, Michael Seal. I think this is a Fast R battle. Although they're not in proper Fast R colours, they are, they do have similar liveries, even though they're not necessarily, in the gold black that we're used to seeing these drivers in. Getting nice and close, though, is Adam Gale. I have to say, I've been covering Michael Seal for a little while now. He actually designed my MX-5, and it looks fantastic, by the way. And the Fast R guys are very friendly, always inviting me to have a chat and get involved if I want to, which is really nice, obviously. But Michael has probably been the biggest improvement that I've seen of all the drivers. Obviously, you had David Ward win the PMR Porsche Cup last time, in the last season, sorry, of NXTGEN's seasons. Basically, this is season 20, that was season 19, and it was broadcast live on Jacko Racing. We saw David Ward take the victory. But I have to say, Michael Seal, he's been involved with everything. He's currently helping run, or part of the admin team for the BSR MX-5 and Porsche series. That runs on a Monday night for free, fun event. I got involved with that on Monday night, so you can watch a little bit of my highlights or my stream if you want. I posted them back on Monday and Tuesday. And he also helps the Tuesday night as well, which is more competitive. It's a pay-to-race style league. And I have to say, I think the standard of Michael's driving has been greatly improved over the couple of months that I've been watching him. Still a little bit of a way. I think he'll be the first to admit to try and catch up to the likes of David Ward, but still doing a better job, I'd say, than he used to be. Alex Everett, though, what's happened to you? Alex has span out, apparently. Had a bit of an incident. He's going into the first corner. Gives a little bit of a lock-up. But then, he tried to correct it with a boot full of power. Just touches the wall. So he hasn't lost out that much in terms of positions. But, obviously, a lot of time has just been lost by him there. So he's still in 5th place. But it's not necessarily what he was hoping for as these two drivers dive into the first corner. As we just saw Alex spin out a little bit there. I'll tell you what, our championship leader, Matt Acton, he's not necessarily putting the flying laps in that we normally come to expect. In fact, in that last lap, Matt Hodges put in a 40.8, Acton a 41.2. So, 0.4 of a second, nearly half a second, is pretty big, considering we're pretty used to seeing Matt Acton, I wouldn't say dominate the series, but I would say he was one of the standout top 3. Although, to be fair, Matt Hodges is as well. And if you need any reminding of the championship, I think it's Hodges and Acton are actually currently tied for the championship lead. So it's sort of no surprise, really, that they're, as close as they are. A handful of drivers are a lap down, unfortunately. That is Paul Cliss, Matt Emmons, Colin Martin, and Paul Scott. Paul Scott, after getting dragged out by the curb and spat into the infield, he actually looks like he's just completely given up the ghost. He hasn't set another lap since then, and he didn't even complete that lap. Colin Martin, as he said in the chat, his PC's frozen, so he only completed 1.6 laps. We're now on lap number 7 for the leaders. There's Miles Owen and Alex Everett. Oh, Alex is going to be regretting that boot full of power he just put into the first corner, isn't he? As he's going to head down into the first corner behind Miles Owens now. This is Matt Acton's teammate, and it's just running a touch wide. So Alex is given an opportunity, but it's a hard opportunity there, isn't it? Because although he's got the inside there, he's going to have the outside for the next corner. But I tell you what, Owens did not press that at all, did he? He was fairly happy to see Alex Everett going up the inside as Martin Brinkworth has set the fastest lap of the race in second place. And to finally put some more pressure on. And as I said, that's half a second quicker than Matt Acton, who just doesn't seem to have the pace around here. Bit of a shame that we've lost the Norwegians, I've noticed as well. Troll Racing, I believe they were called. Well, we've lost them over seems to be the break week, which was scheduled for a couple of weeks' time, but it was moved to last week. So now we have wall-to-wall, Friday to Friday, GTE racing here on Jacko Racing. So be sure to be tuning in for more of that. And if you want to follow, then by all means, that would be delightful. And you can catch more of it, as well as Pure GT Social Races on a Wednesday night, every Wednesday, which is pretty fun. As well as a few other sort of fun events. I'm hoping to do a little bit more racing, maybe a few more sort of invitationals being shared to the channel as well, which will be really rather cool, I'm sure, as well. So, Miles Owens has gotten past Alex Everett yet again. Alex, what can he do here? They're about to head into the final chicane. To see, I mean, it's a big braking zone. It's an opportunity to really close up on the driver ahead. In fact, no, they're not. Sorry, I was looking at 2 other drivers going into the first corner. This is where Alex was struggling a touch before, and he's just given another little dab of the brakes, but not too hard. He hasn't locked up. He didn't unsettle the car anywhere near as much as he did last time. So it's not necessarily as costly, shall we say, as before. Just a touch in the audio. I was thinking maybe you would enjoy some more of the car sounds rather than just my voice banging on and on. I tell you what, even though they're a lap down, they're having a bit of a ding-dong here, aren't they? Matt Emmons, who I was about to drag into the commentary box when I saw him in the pit lane, and Paul Cliss. Cliss leading these 2 drivers, and this would be for 12th position. I wouldn't say it's for the lead of the sort of lapped drivers either, because Ian Crosby actually holds that one. In fact, no, Matt Emmons, this is for the lead of the lapped drivers. Paul Cliss and Matt Emmons having their own little battle here, isn't it? It's quite nice to see. Because at the end of the day, we get involved in sim racing because we want to get involved with a lot of action. And as we head on to the penultimate lap, I believe Matt Hodges is about to start the final lap. In fact, it's been an interesting race, and it's sort of, these sprint races are often a little bit more hectic than the 45-minute feature race. But I think we're going to see quite a lot of action in the feature race as well, thanks to the fact that obviously we've got that that toe, that added extra little bite as Dan Mergent goes off for a little bite of the grass. I think he just went off track a little bit. I feel there is. In fact, there's still more battling going on all over the place, but probably one of the closest battles is Alex Everett and Miles Owens. But we're going to keep an eye on Matt Hodges, because to be fair, we may have featured him a little bit at the beginning of the race, but it was more about how Martin Brinkworth could get past, and we haven't really given enough credit to Matt Hodges, who leads the way, is leading it strong as well. Fantastic drive by him, and to be honest, he hasn't really put a foot wrong. Yeah, a couple of lockups here and there, and maybe a missed apex, but it hasn't really affected him too much. And Martin Brinkworth hasn't been able to attack him too much, and as they come on to the NASCAR oval, he has been able to gain just over a second now gap between Brinkworth, who I think has probably accepted that he's not necessarily going to get the race victory here, but I'm sure he'll be very happy with the second place. I'm sure his teammate Colin Martin in the chat watching this will be very happy as well. But it looks like Matt Hodges, as long as he doesn't spin out of the final chicane, looks like he's going to be taking the race victory. It's going to be a 9/10 margin between him and second place Martin Brinkworth. It was nice and close in qualifying. It was nice and close in the race to the end as well. We got a 45-minute feature race to follow from this, so look forward to that one as the checkered flag drops for the flashing lights of Matt Hodges, who takes the race victory under the lights here at Daytona. Martin Brinkworth comes home in second place with Matt Acton in third as well. So a good showing by the championship leaders. Well done, Matthew, says Jordan. Great drive. And it was a good drive indeed, as Miles Owen comes across the line in fifth place, holding off Alex Everett in the end, and goes steaming onto the outside of the circuit. David Simon, who had a bit of a quieter race after it all sort of kicked off for him and he got involved, not necessarily his own fault, with a few other incidents, but he comes across the line to round out the top 10 with Crosby, Cliss, Emmons all still waiting to finish. Colin Martin and unfortunately Paul Scott ended up DNFing. So as we wait for the race results, we can in fact now bring them up for you as everybody has now crossed the line. It is confirmed that Matthew Hodges won by as close to a second as you can possibly get from Martin Brinkworth in second place. Matt Acton in third, Daniel Merchant was fourth, Miles Owens in fifth, Alex Everett was in sixth place in the end, Jochen Sigert seventh, Adam Gale in eighth, ahead of his teammate Michael Seal in ninth. David Simon, newcomer to the series, and a strong showing by him, rounding out the top 10. Ian Crosby 11th, with 12th being Paul Cliss. Matt Emmons in 13th place, both a lap down. Colin Martin, unfortunately, PC had decided that he didn't want to play a ball, so he's in 14th, but hoping to be back for the second race. And Paul Scott was in 15th place after spinning out on the second corner and unfortunately never rejoining us. So that is the end of the first race this evening. The GRID Engineering GTE Season 1 here at Daytona. It is an interesting race. We now have a couple of minutes downtime as we have to jump into the next server to look forward to the 45-minute feature race. So we're going to jump to a splash screen, a Be Right Back screen, so don't go anywhere. Maybe we'll have a chat to a few of the drivers as well before we get going for the second race of this evening. Fingers crossed it is action-packed. Fingers crossed that this Daytona circuit doesn't disappoint us. It never does. It never has with any NASCAR. It never has with any road racing either, so I'm very much looking forward to it. We'll be back in a sec. Don't go anywhere. When you're trying to organise it. Hello everyone and welcome back to the GRID Engineering GTE Season 1 Round 6 here at Daytona, full under the lights as well. I'm very much looking forward to the 45-minute race we've got coming up. Hopefully it's going to be nice, interesting, action-packed, full of little dramas and here and there and storylines and people to look out for as well. And with any luck, your favourite drivers will be doing the best they can to entertain and enthrall you as well. We've got a minute or so before we actually start gridding up, so what we're going to do is we're going to shoot back over to the iRacing screen, and then we're going to be able to see how we're going to line up. Maybe have a chat about the race that we've just seen as well. So we'll be back in a second. So as you can see, the event for this evening, we've had round 5. We are about to go into round 6. My name is Jack Oliphant, and I am your host here on Jacko Racing, the GRID Engineering GTE League, powered by NXTGEN, hopefully as well. And honestly, we can be saying that we're very much looking forward to this round 6, and not only because of the fantastic racing, but because of the potential extra commentator that we're going to have. We'll explain that in a second. David Simon on pole position from Michael Seal, then Adam Gale in 3rd place, Jochen Siggert in 4th, Alex Everett is in 5th, Miles Owens in 6th place, Dan Merchant in 7th, Matt Acton in 8th, and Martin Brinkworth in 9th, Matt Hodges in 10th, and you keen-eyed viewers who watched the first race will notice it is a top 10 reverse grid. Ian Crosby, Paul Kliss was 11th and 12th. Basically, that means if you want to see what was the results for race 1, well, reverse the top 10. Matt Hodges with the race win, Martin Brinkworth in 2nd, and so on. 13th is Matt Emmons, then Colin Martin in 14th, Paul Scott in 15th, and of course, like we mentioned in the first race, Matt Emmons may well be on his way to have a chat to us if his race gets a little bit quiet like it did in the first one. He is in the interview waiting room, and if we do choose to have a chat to him, we will jump in and see what we can have a word with him. Hopefully, maybe have a little bit of an interview. We did have an elongated interview with him on the first round at Silverstone. Unfortunately, no one could actually hear the damn thing. So we potentially have a similar style of interview this evening as well. Maybe whilst he's driving, maybe while he's in the pits. I'm sure he'll be hoping that he's far too busy actually racing to actually come and chat to us. But it's, we'll have to wait and see. Some of the newcomers then in the sort of top end. Well, David Simon is the only newcomer in the top 5 in the Ford and the Ford Zilla car. Well, he's leading the way, obviously finishing in 10th in his first race here this evening. How is he going to get on in the second? The safety car should be pulling away as Adam Gale weaves the car to try and warm up his tyres as best he can. Alex Everett just giving him a little bit of space. Michael Seal on the outside of the front row of the grid. And I'll tell you what, David Simon didn't necessarily want to go that early, did he? But he's almost had his hand forced to him as Michael Seal overtakes him before they even get to the start line. I'm not sure if there's going to be any repercussions from that if Michael Seal may end up having to get that position back, but he's certainly not looking like it, is it? Because he's gone into the race lead as Alex Everett has gone through into 3rd place ahead of Adam Gale and Jochen Siggert, who lost out big time and is still losing out to Matt Acton and now potentially Matt Hodges as well, locked up into the 3rd corner as they now dive down. It looks like there's going to be some action further down as our race winner Matthew Hodges making moves on Matt Emmons, who's, to be fair, got himself a little bit further up. Miles Owens has been had an incident, unfortunately. Paul Scott is in 14th place. Colin Martin's PC is holding up for the time being. Let's see if he can carry on that way. Alex Everett putting a massive amount of pressure, isn't he, on the top 2 drivers. On David Simon, we're not sure what his true race pace really is, because he got sort of caught up in a bit of an incident early on, and then he ended up sort of not really necessarily getting involved too much after that. He was a bit of no man's land, but he's really putting the pressure on Michael Seal now, isn't he? He's looking at the inside before they even get to the chicane. You can send an awful lot of speed into this chicane over the first crest. It's getting it stopped for the right-hander here that they're going through now, which is actually the bit of the trick, really, is Jochen Siggert is failing to do that. And he falls down and straight into the barrier on the outside to the left-hand side. It looks like Merchant is having similar issues. Not quite as bad, though, as he's facing the correct way, at least. Martin Brinkworth is going side by side with Colin Martin. Both teammates. Colin's gotten his way through there as Michael Seal has dropped out and gone into the pits. He's got to drive through, and I suspect that's because he jumped the start. That means David Simon is now your race leader yet again. Alex Everett was in second place, but went wide and allowed Adam Gale and Matt Acton to go through, and I'm sure he won't be very pleased with that. Then a lot further back, to be fair, is Colin Martin and the rest of the field, isn't it, Alex? The top 4 seconds ahead of the rest of everybody else, basically. So plenty of action here at the start. You know, race is now getting settled into. Ian Crosby going side by side with Martin Brinkworth, who obviously has shown such great pace this evening, and good race pace as well. He just doesn't seem to, but he wasn't able to quite manage to get that result in race 1 that maybe he felt he could have got in the first place, but he came on the chat. He was really happy with second place, and as he should be as well, because to be fair, he didn't do anything wrong. He threw everything at the first place driver, that was Matthew Hodges, but he just couldn't make anything stick. And that was more to the fact that I think Matt Hodges was superb rather than Brinkworth was poor. So yeah, good showing by the top 2 in the last race. And I have to say, Matt Acton is starting to show a little bit more pace than we were expecting. Sorry, out of him. Race 1 didn't really ever produce, did it? It was he was in third place, but he couldn't really ever make any sort of inkling towards the top 2. He was never really in for the fight. As Adam Gale now is hunting down David Simon. He looks to the outside again. This is going in across the line into the first corner. Is Gale going to fly around the outside? No, but there's a big lockup and a hit of the wall by David Simon. Adam Gale didn't need to do anything because Simon did all the work for him, and it looks like he's doing all the work for everybody else as well. Matt Emmons losing out a little bit there. Not sure what happened to him, but let's have a look at what happened to David Simon. Now, let's go on board with him because he's going down into the first corner. He's obviously got a car on the right-hand side. He just, it's absolutely gutted. It looked like if he didn't touch the wall, maybe he would have held it. But he would have lost first place. But he may well have, and there goes past Martin Brinkworth. And then Matt Emmons is doing basically exactly the same thing. In fact, actually, let's have a look at this incident, but for Matt Emmons on board, this is Matt Emmons you're actually currently looking at now, so I think what you're about to see is pretty much the same style of incident, but not quite as big. So as he comes down, the car gets away from him, but he holds it there, and he's just a big slide. He loses out a position or 2, yeah, fair play, but I'm sure he'll prefer that to what happened to David Simon. So Ian Crosby behind Paul Clist, and now it's behind Martin Brinkworth, isn't it? As he goes rally crossing across. I think that's what Alex Everett probably would rather be doing right now, although he's in third place and doing rather well at it as well. It looks like Ian Crosby, as we cut to him, doesn't quite have the braking zone for that final chicane quite nailed in this race just yet, as Matt Emmons now looks to take advantage, and I'm looking forward to getting Matt Emmons into the comms box. I said Matt Acton actually because he's just gone into the race lead, so let's have a look at him because they're still going side by side with the fast star driver and Adam Gale. Gale looking to the outside now. Is he going to go for the comeback? It's on. There's a door open, but it's slammed shut by Matt Acton, who went for the late apex after locking up, going too hot into the second or third corner, sorry. Colin Martin with the fastest lap of the race so far last time round. Interesting that, because obviously he qualified in third place and then his PC died. So Martin Brinkworth didn't have his teammate to help along with the action. Maybe with the extra help of Colin Martin, he could have tried to make more of a fist of it for the race lead, but it wasn't to be in the end. I think Matt Emmons has had an incident. Matt Emmons is having an incident as he, he's just locked up. Well, I'm not sure if he even locked up, really. He just over-rotated, didn't he? He led too much. Basically, I think what happened there, as he gets in the way of David Simon as well. Simon won't be too pleased with that one. And I'm sure neither will Matt Emmons, to be fair. But it looked like then he was sort of turning and braking at the same time. So he was you should always brake in a straight line, the general rule of motorsport and driving your car. Always brake in a straight line and come off the brake and then do your turning, especially in a a high downforce car, which the GTEs aren't massively downforce based, but they do have some elements of the aerodynamics about them. You should always try and come off the brakes so the car is balanced 50-50. That's a perfect weight distribution style thing that a lot of companies go on about when they make sports cars and stuff like that. You want perfect weight distribution, so you don't want too much weight on the front end of the car, you don't want too much weight on the back end of the car. Now the best drivers can manipulate the weight a little bit further forward to get a bit of a tighter turn in, but unfortunately, if you have too much weight, if you have 70% of the weight over the front of the car, and that can be due to braking, all the forces go forward. If you imagine when you're braking in a car, you go forward. You're forced forward by the G-forces. Well, all the weight then goes over the front tyres, and the rear goes loose, and that's exactly what you see there from Matt Emmons, unfortunately. A little bit of the rear going loose, and then, as you can imagine, if the rear goes loose, you try and turn, there'll be so much grip on the front end, not enough on the rear end, and you end up spinning. So, yeah, not sure if anybody out there was looking for a physics lesson in terms of how to drive a race car, but there you go. That is why you see drivers sort of out of nothing necessarily, over-rotate the rear end of the car. And it can happen a lot. It happened an awful lot in the Porsches because they are so sort of unbalanced in their weight distribution. There's a lot of power and a lot of weight going to the rear wheels, and that means that they do sort of over-rotate, especially as the tyres start to go off with their high. I mean, there's nearly 600 horsepower in those Porsches, and if you spin up the wheels or anything like that, the back end just goes loose everywhere. It's really difficult to control. But yeah, that is essentially it. Learn something new every day, says Jordan, exactly. If you're in an MX-5 or something with less downforce, then there is trail braking. As I said, that's a high-level skill where you sort of trail brake into corners, and that's sort of manipulating the weight to do the turning for you. And then there's the whole theory, well, not theory, but there's a whole practice of driving with your feet. If anybody is familiar with Snetterton, the penultimate corner Corum, that is a perfect example of how to drive with your feet, essentially. You'd almost do the steering with your feet, because you go into that in, say, an MX-5 or a Genesis G40, as I used to do, and the wheel is essentially straight. You sort of get an initial turn in, and the car just keeps turning, and your wheel has only got about 5% turn on, even though you're going really quite far, but you're actually rotating the rear end with your throttle and your brake. So that is sort of how we used to deal with it, really. You would, if you needed a little bit more turn in, if you needed the rear end to sort of come around a little bit more, because the car was so on edge, you just put a little bit more throttle in, 5% more throttle in, and the car would turn in a bit more. If you start to over-rotate, you just lift off, you maybe give a little bit of a brake. It's all so small percentages, but that is how you sort of drive one of that. I mean, an aero car, an aerodynamic car, in theory, is actually slightly easier, because you hit the brake in a straight line. You don't need to trail brake or anything. If anything, you don't want to trail brake, because you use the aero, you come off, make sure the car is balanced, use the aero, and throw it around the corner, and it will stick. The faster you go in an aero car, the more grip you got. Colin Martin goes past Adam Gale then. An innocuous sort of incident there from Gale. I'm not really sure what happened to him there. Let's have a quick look. It didn't look like he sent too much speed over it. It didn't look like the car wasn't happy. Just Colin Martin got a really good run off it. Paul Cliss has had an unfortunate incident as well. What's happening here is going into the first corner, isn't it? As Paul goes in. Oh yeah, just touches the grass on the left-hand side there, and you don't need me to explain the physics as to why that might not work out very well for a driver. Adam Gale, he's falling down, isn't he? What has happened to Adam Gale? He might have got a slow down. He might have got a slow down. I'm not sure how much he cut the chicane, but he might have gone over too hard, over the apex, ended up getting a slow down, and then ends up obviously having to come off the throttle, and now he's just lost not only the podium position from Colin Martin, potentially a podium position full stop, because Alex Everett is is having a strong race here. It has to be said as well. He's up one place. Colin Martin's up 12. I mean, in fact, actually, that's quite a good idea, really. Where's Paul Clist? Oh, he's had another crash. What's happened to Paul Clist here? He's coming out of the third corner. Going into the left-hander. What's happening here? Oh, he locks up, goes straight into the tyre wall. Ooh, nasty. Yeah, that's no wonder he's had to spawn back to the pits. as Martin Brinkworth is. I'll tell you what, this could be a flashback to race 1, couldn't it? I could be showing a replay here of race 1, because the 2 leaders are still going hammer and tongs at it. It's exactly the same formation as they were in race number 1 as well. However, this is the fight for top 5, not for the top place on the podium. So as Brinkworth now finally, there you go, he's getting a bit tighter, isn't he? He was getting a little bit more brave, maybe not quite the same at the right time. He came in a little bit tight. It was a bit easy for Hodges to keep the wheels straight under braking and not allow Brinkworth to come back in. What Brinkworth probably had to do is, that basically is force Hodges into a mistake by making him brake in a line that he's not necessarily comfortable with, and therefore, obviously, Hodges, with the brakes that are on these GTE cars, you don't have any ABS. It's a little bit more tricky. You know, drivers get comfortable braking in a certain way, certain percentages in a straight line and everything. What you have to do to make the car in front of you make a mistake is make them brake with a little bit more steering input or on a different line than they're used to, because then they may have to brake more or they may have to brake less, and it will potentially, there'll be a lockup there, which is exactly what Martin Brinkworth did there on Matt Hodges. Matt obviously was looking in his rearview mirror. He was forced to go defensive into turn number 3, which he never had to do in race 1 against Martin. And that actually caused him. He may have braked a little bit too late. He had to brake more then. Obviously no ABS to kick in. Locks up, going straight in. Teammate Paul Cliss is not having a good night. Jordan, he isn't. There's no getting around it, is there? He's still in the pit lane. So he's clearly got a lot of damage on his car, unfortunately. As we see, Matt Axton still leading the way by half a second on Colin Martin. I tell you what, this battle is still the closer one, isn't it? It is slightly roles reversed, but we're still looking at the same drivers, from race 1 to race number 2, and it's because they're so evenly matched. If anybody was here for qualifying, you'll know just how evenly matched they are. As Hodges now looks to the outside. It wasn't to be, though, is it? And there goes Paul Cliss for you, Jordan, coming out of the pit lane. Unfortunately, over a lap down now, which isn't obviously ideal for him. He won't be too pleased about it, but at least he's getting out there, putting some practice in, getting used to how the GTE handles as well. Realistically, it's a half an hour practice session for him now, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. Sometimes, I mean, on a Monday, I was racing in the BSR Monday sort of Fun Day series. As I said before, in race number 1, it's a bit of a fun series. There's MX-5s and Porsches all running on the same event, on the same bit of track as well. And so it can be quite hectic. Obviously, I was racing in an MX-5 because I do not have the skills to be racing in a Porsche like a lot of these drivers. But it's obviously jumping out the way and everything like that. But, I had a big incident in race number 1. But at the end of the day, I had to get used to Road America. So I think I had that incident on lap 1. Had 5 minutes in the pits, so I had 10 minutes left of the race. And the best thing for me to do, as is most of the cases for any driver, is to get out there and keep practicing and just use it as a practice session. Jumping out the way of cars, not necessarily sort of finding out where's best to let cars get past through as well if you're a lapped driver, because you don't want to ruin your lap time as much as you can, but equally the most important thing is that you don't ruin their race. So if you're coming up, the leaders are coming up to the back of you, obviously you have to sort of jump out the way as quickly as you can. But if there's someone who's in a space of about 5 seconds in front of them and back from them, you can just sort of maybe hold them up a tenth or 2. It's a bit cheeky, but that is to sort of figure out where's best that you can let other drivers through. So you're not obviously, so you keep trying to rotate and get into a rhythm of the track, because that is the most important thing when you're practicing, is that you get into the rhythm of the track. Unless you're very high level and you can sort of get out there and put flying laps in on a 1-lap stint, you don't necessarily always have that. In sim racing, I think it's harder to do that. Genuinely, I think it's harder to get out there and set 1 flying lap than it is in a real-life race car. Mainly because there's a lot of other forces, there's a lot of other sensors that you can bring in for a real-life race car. Obviously, you feel the car moving around through your bum. You feel the car breaking traction on the tyre wall. Not the tyre wall that you may fly into. I mean the wall of the tyre on your cars. Which obviously changes every single lap. You feel the heat of the car around you. There's a lot of other sensations, whereas in a sim, you just have your steering wheel, and if you're lucky, some half-decent pedals. But even then, I mean, the half-decent pedals, I mean, I have a load cell, and there isn't a feedback of the tyre coming through that load cell. It's a bit more realistic how you hit it. You know, you have to put a lot of force into it to hit it and to get it to brake properly. But in a real life race car, the brake sort of has a feel to it, has a vibration to it, and you can feel when you're about to lock up. It's almost like a rumble. You can get rumble kits for sim racing, but then you have to program it in. It's still not quite as intuitive. So I always feel like it's a little bit easier to actually know when the car's up to temperature, to fly around a real life racetrack when you know the grip, you know, you can feel everything about the car is on point, and then you just go and hit it. Whereas in a sim, you're always basing your braking points on markers left and right of you. And you know, in the real life, you don't necessarily do that. I mean, we spoke to Dave Newsham in the Porsche PMR Cup once, and he said exactly the same thing. You know, you're basing your braking points, you're basing where you turn in and everything. In real life, you base that on the apex. You look at the apex, and you base all the information from all these sensors that I've just gone through about where to brake, based on what you feel and how close the apex is and where you want the car to end up. Whereas in a sim, you pretty much have to just know, okay, I need to brake at the second cone. If I do that every single time, I'll be around the right area. Which makes it a bit harder in the sim, in my opinion, to do a 10-minute qualifying lap, get out, or a 5-minute qualifying lap, get out there, do one flying lap, get back in, change the boots, go out, do one flying lap, and be sure that it is the best you can do. In my opinion, in sim racing, it's always better to get into a rhythm. You know, you do have a lot more time available to you in the sim world as well. You know, get out there, get into a rhythm, make sure that you're hitting your braking zones. Can you push your braking zone a couple of feet? You know, you don't want to go 100 yards further on. You don't want to go heading straight into a wall, have to spawn back to the pits, then get out again, and you've broken up that rhythm. But you can always, if you're braking just before a 150 meter board, try braking just after the 150 meter board. You won't crash. You'll just end up out braking yourself and missing the apex. Alex Everett, what's happened to you there? We've had a couple of more crashes as well. We've got David Simons, unfortunately, had an incident, just focusing back on the race. In the 45-minute races, I do go off on a little bit of a tangent because there's no other commentator here with me, and yeah, sometimes the racing can sort of die down just a touch. You know, drivers are getting into, as I said, a rhythm, and they might, even though they're within a couple of tenths of the driver in front, they might not necessarily go in really hard to try and take that position off them. They're either fuel saving, you know, keep conserving the tyres, all that sort of thing. So let's have a look at what was actually going on. David Simon has had an incident. Now, is this the same incident we had before? No. It looks very similar, but he actually got away with that a lot better. There we go. You want an example of braking and turning, not braking in a straight line? Have a look at this from David Simon, unfortunately. Now, he's trying to trail brake, which I admire him for. But it just wasn't happening. You can see the brake lights. I never do this, but we're going to try and go chase cam. I'm sorry, David, that this is picking up on you here. But if you look at the brake lights, he's going in a straight line. He hits them very nicely. Now, it's a slow corner, so he has to continue on them. And to get a better turn in, you can trail brake. But the problem is, his rear end's gone loose. Look how much his front end is gripping. His rear end is gone. You can see his hands working at the wheel, and that is why you've over-rotated. So again, that sort of trail brake, you can trail brake. The idea is you sort of taper off, and you may be doing 10% braking into the apex. But even if you're doing 15% into the apex in these cars, that's the result that can happen. Matt Emmons has had an incident as well. Now, is this the cause? Is this potentially the opportunity to get Matt Emmons into the pits if he's in the grid? If he's in the pit, into the comms box. And again, a very similar incident. He was loading the front end. He came off the brakes, but the rear end was already going. Very disappointing there. I'm sure Matt Emmons will be disappointed for that. But luckily, he's not actually caused himself any issues, so he is still rotating on the circuit. And while he does that, he's actually got 6 seconds ahead of him, and then 33 seconds back. So I'll give him 5 minutes, see what he can do, get back into sort of the swing of things, and then maybe we'll bring him in to have a chat to him as well. This little battle here is quite interesting now, isn't it? Between Brinkworth, Hodges, and Paul Scott. Now, Paul obviously didn't necessarily have the best race in race number 1. So he's hoping to gain a better one. And racing with these two drivers, I would say, is an absolute win because they've been very quick this evening. Their best lap times, even in this race, have been fairly close to the likes of Matt Acton, who's leading the way, obviously, who has improved his lap times drastically, Matt Acton. He was driving in the 41s, low 41s, His best lap time in this race so far is a 40.89, so 40.9, but good to get me cracking into... Where on earth is Martin Brinkworth going? Oh dear, he's looks like he sent far too much speed. I said he could send a lot of speed into the first apex of that chicane. The second one is the tricky one that you have to slow down for. Let's have a look and see what happened to him. He's just going in. He sent a lot of speed into that left-hander and he just couldn't get it stopped. He couldn't get it turned. As I said, it's not the left-hander you need to slow down for. It's the right-hander you need to slow down for. You do most of the slowing down before the left-hander. So, a bit of a shame there by Martin Brinkworth. Oh, sorry, Jordan, I missed your comment. My first race in the championship is at Spa, and I'm nervous. Not great at driving GTEs. Honestly, just as I said, my biggest advice for driving in the GTE car is, one, get into a rhythm and get feeling the car, because no traction control and no ABS is tricky in any car. Especially sort of the high power, as we're watching there, Matt Acton, a class driver, having a lockup into the third corner. But the good thing about that was he may have locked up, but he did it in a straight line. So he was still able to slow the car up as much as he tried to. Obviously, he didn't slow it up as quickly as he wanted to, but he still was able to turn the car in. So try and focus on that. Yeah, the quickest way to do it is to still trail brake in, because it's not necessarily a fully sort of aerodynamic car. But if you want to get around without spinning for 45 minutes, I would advise trying to practice braking in a straight line as much as you can. Acton up the... Colin up the inside. Acton going wide straight on. And I tell you what, he'll have a massive slowdown for that, won't he? He's already lost the race to Colin Martin pretty much, as Martin is streaking into the distance as PC's finally playing ball. But Acton really scuppered that one, and he was really lucky that he sort of gave the place up. I think he's almost got away with it, to be honest. But let's have a look and see what happened to it. Oh, no, they can't even see. Let's slow it down and have a look at Matt Acton's point of view. Oh, yeah, that is... we're going to rewind that. Not necessarily the best bit of production here by me, but we are going to rewind that just to have an example. So listen to this one, because he broke with the rear end snapped. Yeah, so the only thing I can think of there is that he was braking sort of slightly aiming at the corner, which in an oval obviously is a different gradient. And he was almost putting just a touch of load on the right hand side, which meant his car started to break away, and then all of a sudden, I don't know whether he tried to correct it or just the laws of physics corrected it for him, and it just snapped him to the right-hand side. And that can happen a lot with an MX-5. It caused basically by braking too hard, essentially. You know, the rear end goes too loose, which is ironic, because in these cars, normally when you brake too hard, your rear end doesn't go loose, you just lock up. But obviously he's going, that's probably the fastest part of the circuit, apart from maybe into turn 1. So it just wasn't having it. Matt Acton, now this is Miles Owen that's behind him in the TCE car. I was about to say, luckily for Matt, he has his teammate behind him, but actually, realistically, that's Miles Owens, who is a lapped driver. So Adam Gale, who's 2 seconds away, if he caught up to Matt Acton, Miles Owens would realistically have to jump out of the way, because he would be blue flag. But obviously what he's going to try and help his teammate do is pull away, and if Matt is taking a few too many laps to get back up to speed, it could well be Miles' opportunity to get in front of him and maybe give him the toe to try and get the speed back up to pull away from the car behind. Those little things can help the teammates. We see a lot of it in this series, and we'll see even more of it at Le Mans. You know, teamwork is very important in this series, especially when it comes down to the final race. Just like Jordan was saying with Paul Clist, you know, teammates, you know, the SVPMR guys, SVR PMR guys, sorry. No, it is SVPMR guys. You know, they'll be working together. So we may have half the cars when it comes to Le Mans, but we will have double the stakes, which is going to be very impressive. So yeah, I mean, at Spa, Jordan, yeah, what I would do is just try and keep it calm. Just get out there, do some laps. If Paul is around, obviously, maybe do some laps with him. I know these guys, NXTGEN, they like to put some... Oops, sorry, I just made that very loud. I do know that NXTGEN obviously like to host some practice sessions. I would get involved with them. You know, you can learn quite a lot. They're all a very friendly bunch. And that goes for anybody else out there who's wanting to get involved in a race series. You know, NXTGEN at the end of the day are a very friendly bunch, and they're sort of very inclusive. It's all a free-to-race leagues, so you know, they want people to just get involved and enjoy themselves. And really, it's sort of, in my opinion, it's almost like club racing in real life. You know, club racing is all about the camaraderie. You know, it's people, you know, they take their own barbecues, and they just have one of those pop-up awning things, and they work on their own cars and all that sort of thing. They have a mate to work with it. You know, they bring their dogs with them, and they do the camping thing. Yeah, there's a lot what this reminds me of, which is why I sort of keep coming back to it, to be honest. You know, there may come a time where I have to take a step back, unfortunately, from NXTGEN, but I will do pretty much everything in my power to keep doing their leagues, because at the end of the day, it is that inclusivity. It is that sort of opportunity that if you want to get involved, like a lot of these drivers have. I mean, Dan Merchant, I notice him as he goes wide, as Alex Everett launches himself at the inside. And I tell you what, actually, I'll be interested to see, because I was rambling on a little bit there. I didn't necessarily see what necessarily happened to Dan Merchant there, whether it was just a bit of a lock-up, or whether it was a case of Alex putting the pressure on and forcing him offline. But either way, Martin Brinkworth is going to take advantage as well, and slots up the inside, and Dan Merchant has to settle for 8th place for now. So Alex, although I think he had an incident earlier on which really set him down, he was running in 3rd or 4th, now down in 6th. Well, he was in 7th, now up to 6th. You know, it's equally impressive that Dan Merchant has jumped on and has been a part of the sort of mid-pack, if not slightly front of the mid-pack, straight away. And actually, yeah, he's quite new, even to the point where he was, you know, asking when the sessions go up and what's the sort of criteria for getting involved. And yeah, it's lovely to have him here racing door to door, side to side with these drivers as Martin Brinkworth goes through on Alex Everett and another driver sort of obviously relatively new, but not new to NXTGEN. As I said, he is broadcasting the iRacing Legends on a Wednesday night. As I said before, doing a fantastic job of it as well. To be honest, I might actually get some advice off him for making project files for SDKs, doing that good a job. Oh, Hodges goes wide from Adam Gale because he looked like he was just trying to throw too much speed around the outside there, wasn't he? Paul Scott takes advantage by a huge lunge up the inside by Hodges. Doesn't want to give the place up, but Paul Scott gets the cutback. Lovely little bit of driving there by Scott. Just knew that if Hodges was going to do that, he was not going to make the corner, and he just waited for the Porsche to go through, launch it up the back up the inside, get a load of rake on that turning steering wheel, and straight back up the inside there for Paul Scott as he tries to chase down the podium position at Adam Gale. So all of a sudden, the fight that we were seeing was once 6th, 7th, and 8th. Now it's 4th, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, isn't it? Which is a lovely sort of little story that's developing. About 2/3 of this race about to tick over, about to hit the half-an-hour stage. So we're basically into a 15-minute sprint race now, ladies and gentlemen, with 4th place Paul Scott being attacked by Matt Hodges. Now Hodges, he tried to go around the outside before into turn 1. It didn't go his way. He tried to go the inside into turn 5, I think. It didn't go his way. And now maybe he's just calming down a touch to try and find out how on earth he can get past. Oh no, Gale's got to slow down. Gale ends up falling down the order. He's got to slow down. He had to lift off the throttle. And now all of a sudden that podium position has gone very far away. Paul Scott, though, he's in 3rd place, and he currently holds that bottom step of the podium. Let's see what Hodges can do around the outside. He's already got a good run on him into the first corner. They go. No, they don't. Around the start-finish line they go, and Hodges has the race lead, and not race lead, this little lead, and he's got it convincingly as well. He gets the car stopped. He gets all the way through, and Scott has to deal with 4th place again. Now, Adam Gale, as I said, is actually in 5th place, but again, it's Miles Owens, who is the TCE car that you see trailing this little battle here, not actually getting involved. He's 14th place, so it would be ill-advised to maybe get involved quite so heavily, as Ian Crosby has gone off track. Matt Emmons has gone off track again. Oh, yeah, now we saw that to Paul Scott, I believe, in the first race. Not quite as dramatic for Matt Emmons here. Maybe I'm going to drag him into the comms box as Ian Crosby goes just a touch too wide. And then ends up getting, again, sort of pulled out over to that side of the circuit. So, as we are in a touch of calm, let's go and have a chat to the driver that we just saw fall off the circuit, unfortunately. Well, we'll just make sure, actually, that he's not in a battle. No, he's got 19 seconds ahead of him to Ian Crosby, and then 26 seconds behind him. So we are going to have a chat to him. So he did ask for a warning. So this is the warning, Matt. We are about to come in and have a word with you, if you don't mind. There's a couple of battles that we're going to have to keep an eye out, though, whilst we do such a thing, because Alex Everett and Dan Merchant still going side by side. The battle of the newbies for the top 7 is really heating up, and I have to say, it's been fairly clean, hasn't it? Good driving from the both of them. Really good job. As Everett has to lose out. They've gone round the chicane. They're going over the start-finish line now. And it is Merchant who's got a nice big gap between himself and Everett to just take that racing line, get the braking zone done and sorted. And there we go. Jobs good un. So let's go and have a chat, shall we? Hopefully you guys can hear him. I will double check that you can hear him. To Matt Emmons. Now, Matt, hopefully you are prepared for this, but I've seen that you got about 20 seconds either side of you, so I thought maybe it's a good time to run our little experiment.
Yeah, hopefully it is. I can just concentrate on turn 1.
By all means, if you want to concentrate on the driving, I don't mind at all.
No, it's fine. It's just turn 1 with the banking coming off the hill. It's a bit hard work on the brakes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so give us a rundown, I suppose, of how this race has gone for you, because obviously we've noticed that you're in a little bit of a gap, aren't you, between sort of either side of you, and you keep seeing sort of getting pulled off the circuit a little bit, left, right, and centre.
Yeah, I keep spinning the wheels up on the curbs, and it's just spitting me out everywhere, or being a bit silly on the brakes, like then. Yeah, just not my night, I think.
Yeah, a bit of a shame. How is Daytona to drive in these GTE cars? Because it's a difficult one. It's a difficult car to drive, isn't it? Full stop. And Daytona seems to be catching an awful lot of people out, not just yourself.
No, it's just coming on and off the banking. It's the elevation changes. It really unsettles the car, especially turn 1 when you're coming off the brakes, and you're always overheating the back tyres a bit because you either, like me, putting a bit too much throttle on or something. So when you come into turn 4 for the hairpin, it's really, really skittish on the back end on the brakes.
Very. As I said, it's quite interesting to hear from a driver's perspective. I was for quite a lot of the stream. You may have been listening. I've sort of been trying to explain how, yeah, maybe we're seeing a few more mistakes from drivers in terms of the braking and everything like that. But at the end of the day, it's the elevation changes, as you say, isn't it? So looking forward then. We obviously had the break week last week, so it's going to be wall-to-wall GTE racing from here on in, isn't it? And it seems to be nice that we have a few extra drivers joining us each weekend.
It does. I mean, I keep getting messages every week at the minute asking for more and more people if they can. There's room for them to join, and I'm just loving the fact that I've got quite a few people interested in this, and it seems to be quite successful so far. To be honest, I'm just hopefully going to see one week where we've got a full 30 or 40 car grid nearly. Yeah,
I was going to say, although we have a natural drop-off, which happens in series, you know, at the end of the day, it's very nice to see that we have, you know, the new drivers come in, and some of them, obviously, next-gen friends, aren't they, in the likes of Alex Everett, but some of them are pretty much brand new. I mean, Dan Merchant, he's been on the Discord, isn't he? I mean, he's been asking sort of how it all works even, so he's clearly, you know, very new, but he's getting right stuck in. There's some quick drivers that have joined us.
Yeah, very quick. Ooh, nearly.
As I said, I don't mind if you want to concentrate on your driving, Matt. By all means, you can crack on.
No, it's all right. I'm all right. Just a bit of a moment on the accelerator pedal.
Yeah, well, we're actually having a look at a few of the races as well. I mean, the likes of Matt Hodges obviously won that first race, didn't he? And Paul Scott. It's really close action, but it's nice to see that there's. You know, I said about the newcomers in the championship. There's also a variety of quick drivers who can all potentially win in these races as well. It's not necessarily, I mean, I'm sure if they're watching, they won't mind me saying the Porsche PMR Cup drivers, the likes of David Ward and it was fairly obvious that they would come through and it would be the top 2 or top 3, wouldn't it? But here, it really comes down to track position and look, doesn't it? And how these drivers are carving through the field.
Yeah, it does just a bit. I don't know what to say. I suppose it's also how much practice you put in these cars, because yeah, you can get setups off websites and stuff like that, but you've still got to get used to the way it drives and stuff. I mean, I'm paying for that. I've only done about an hour's practice, if that, this week on just a setup I've just picked up. So yeah, it's just proving a bit hard work.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll let you get off, and we'll maybe have a chat to you after the session, Matt. But thanks for talking to us. There's a nice little battle heating up between Paul Scott and Matt Hodges for a podium place. So we're going to go and have a watch of that.
Thank you very much.
And that was Matt Emmons, obviously having a little bit of a struggle with the car. As he said, maybe paying for the lack of practice that he's been putting in. But one driver who doesn't look like he's been struggling on pace this evening is Matt Hodges, and he's currently holding his second podium position, but only just ahead of Paul Scott in fourth place. The closest battle that we have really on circuit here. You know, things have slightly mellowed out a bit, and in fact, Miles Owens is really trying to get involved as well. Thank you very much for the like, Dad. If anybody's wondering who that is, Paul Oliphant, that is a relation. Yeah, it's my dad. But yeah, it's nice to see that although the race has mellowed out somewhat, we are seeing still, even at the end of a 45-minute race, a battle for a podium position. And it goes back to what I was mentioning to Matt Emmons just then in the little interview we had while he was driving. I think maybe a little bit of a struggle, even though he was already struggling with the car. Probably having a talk to me was probably not very helpful. But people have the opportunity to get race victories here. You know, a lot of the series that I get involved in and I commentate on and stuff, you do often have the main protagonists, the drivers that you would expect to see right at the front of the field, and even on reverse grids, you know, get right to the front of the field. Notably, on a Tuesday on BSR, I covered a lot for Year One TV and MX5 Racing, as I mentioned before. And there was a guy called Adam Shepherd, and there's Ben Sharp, Dave Chapman and Pete Newman. Those four drivers, no matter even if we had a full reverse grid of top 30 reverse grid, you would see them at the end of a 15-minute race at the front of the field as well, just because of the carnage and everything that went on. Whereas these guys here, there's a lot of fast drivers. Colin Martin, he qualified in third. His PC froze in race one, which didn't give him the opportunity to go for the race lead. But he is at the top now, and he's 8.5 seconds ahead of Matt Acton, who is championship leader and won plenty of races in his time here in season one already. Again, Matt Hodges, he won race one, and he's not really anywhere near winning race two. He's in third place, of course. Paul Scott span out in race one, fighting for a podium position here, and it's fascinating to see. Martin Brinkworth, obviously second in race number one. He's sixth at the moment, and if you look back at the previous rounds, you'll see that happens quite a lot, and we're not necessarily getting repeated winners. We are a little bit, obviously, but we're not getting repeated winners constantly, which is very refreshing, as Paul Scott locks up big time. And luckily, Miles Owens, for him anyway, Miles Owens isn't close enough to take any kind of advantage. Not that he really could, because he's in 14th place. If he overtook Paul Scott, he'd just be sort of in the way. But now he doesn't really have a choice, because Paul Scott over-rotates the rear end, and it's just like the same braking problems that we've seen before. I think Matt Emmons was alluding to that one, that particular corner before. I think it was turn 6 or 7, I believe he said. You know, it's the fact that you trail brake, you don't get the car slowed down, you feel like you have to hold the brake, but then you put the steering lock on, and bye-bye goes the rear end, straight around, and unfortunately you end up locking the wrong way. So Martin Brinkworth, I said he was in 6th, well now he's into the top 5, and it's still the closest battle we have on circuit is involving Paul Scott, but it is unfortunately for him no longer involving the podium position. Matt Hodges and Adam Gale are less than a second apart from each other, but it is, at the moment, the closest fight is for the top 5, as Colin Martin, not satisfied with an 8.5 second lead that he had a lap ago. He's just put in his personal best time with 4 minutes to go, a 1 minute 40.53, but so does Matt Hodges as well, which is why that gap is close up to just under 9/10 of a second, or around 9/10 of a second, between himself and Matt Acton into the first corner. And to be honest, in MX5 racing and stuff, we always say if you can get within 1.8 seconds of the driver in front, you are in the tow, you're in the slipstream. It gives you every opportunity to catch back up lap by lap, and obviously the closer you are, if you're 1.8 seconds away, you get a whiff of tow, you get a whiff of the opportunity to maybe get some extra miles an hour on the driver ahead. But if you're within a second, you know, that becomes a lot stronger. If you're within half a second, all of a sudden you will be gaining about 2 or 3 miles an hour down a straight. And around Daytona, That is massive. It's a super speedway, and if anybody's watched NASCAR around Daytona will know full well the effect that that can have. Now, admittedly, NASCARs are just bricks with wheels, and they're not aerodynamically sound at all. The wind doesn't go over them and fold nicely to keep the back end down over spoilers or anything like that. They do just make big holes in air, unlike the GTEs, which have a little bit more aerodynamics about them. But even now, even in these cars, you still see the opportunity for them to get involved with the toe. And even now, you'll see that Paul Scott came off the corner half a second down. Well, into the braking zone, he was just under 0.4 of a second down. And going through here, this is the more important section of the track, isn't it? Because really now you're flat out right until the first corner braking zone as you round out the final corner. But you may well see it's about half a second, that gap between these two drivers. You can just see it in yellow. Now you sort of flit it into orange as he goes down within half a second. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's within 0.4 of a second, just under 0.4 of a second as they hit the braking zone. So Daytona, although, yeah, there we go, it's about 0.4 of a second, he has gained about a tenth, maybe a tenth and a half. It's not, you know, we came on the chat, a few drivers came on the chat saying that it's a big thing, the toe around here. And in these GTE cars, it doesn't seem that's the biggest gain or loss of time. The biggest gain or loss of time is how the application of the brakes lap by lap and the consistency. Because we see a lot of drivers out-braking themselves and they lose half a second out of a lap purely by doing that and locking up the brakes. And if you're a driver who can consistently keep the brakes, keep the pressure, obviously as the tyres go down, locking up becomes easier. But if you can consistently not lock up and make your apex, essentially, you may be 2 tenths off the ultimate pace, but you will be, over the course of a race, I reckon about 2 seconds better off than a driver who, you know, has those extra 2 tenths in a flying lap but then keeps locking up every 5 laps. My theory, anyway. As I said, in these sort of races, I do tend to go on a bit of a ramble. If you want to tell me to shut up, then give the stream a like and I'll shut up. No, obviously not. But yeah, the race leader is Colin Martin, and I believe we may well be coming on to the final lap of the race. And in fact, we will be coming on to the final lap of the race because Colin Martin's about to round out. He's got Jochen Sigurd for company, not for a position as he starts the race lead. Colin Martin will be ruining the fact that his computer decided to freeze 1.5. Where's he going? Don't ruin it now, Colin. I'm now focusing on you. I haven't focused on you all race, and all of a sudden you're throwing yourself off at turn number 1. Yeah, his computer decided to freeze 1.5 laps into race number 1. Absolutely gutted for him. But now his computer has managed to hold up for a full 45 minutes. And I imagine quite a sweaty Colin Martin is currently sat in that Porsche because he was probably praying and hoping. Wow, Miles Owens just set the fastest lap of the race on lap 26. It's quite astonishing. And a lap down. I imagine he'll be praying beyond hope that he doesn't end up having a PC failure right now. 44 minutes and 52 seconds gone would be the worst possible time in the lead of a race. I have a story about that and my brother leading a British GT race, but I'll save that for another time. It wasn't his computer that failed, but it was the car. I'll save that for another time, though, because at the end of the day, Colin Martin deserves all the credit. He's going to dive into the final chicane for the final time, and with any luck, he doesn't get a slowdown. That looked like a big cut. That looks like an even bigger cut. Wouldn't be surprised if he does get a slowdown, but there is very lenient rules with the track cutting here at Daytona, which is why I was slightly surprised that we saw the likes of Adam Gale having to slow down quite significantly. I think Alex Everett had to do it as well. But as he rounds out the final corner, for the final time, it's going to be the checkered flag, a flash of the lights under the lights here for Colin Martin to take the race victory at Daytona full circuit, and a great win for him in the GRID Engineering GTE round 6 as well. Fantastic drive by Colin. Absolutely no pressure at all by the end of it. And as we've seen, Paul Scott and Martin Ringworth cross the line side by side. I'll tell you what, we'll get a replay of that. In fact, I'm going to bring up the replay already because I want to see what happens here. Paul Scott gets a fantastic draft, doesn't he? And they were separated by less than a tenth of a second, less than half a tenth of a second by the time they crossed the line. And this is why, because Paul Scott, he came out the draft a little bit early. Maybe he's regretting that, you know, because if he stayed in it, maybe he would have got the draft to the line. He would have got that extra mile an hour out of it, and all he needed was that extra mile an hour. He was on the apron as they crossed the line, In NASCAR, that would be illegal. But here, it's not. So Paul Scott has to settle for 6th place. Martin Brinkworth in 5th. As the final couple of drivers will be rounding out. We'll just wait for them to finish. But it is Colin Martin doing some lovely little donuts, I'm sure. In fact, I can't focus on him, which is a bit of a shame. And that's because he's in the pit lane, actually. That'll be why. I thought he was doing some donuts for us, but he's not. So we'll go back to the scenic view and try and process what we've just seen. We'll bring you up the race results as soon as they're available. Nice drive, Colin, says Jamie Dory in the chat. Dammy moved up 13 positions. Well done, Colin. He did indeed, yeah. 13 positions gained by Colin Martin. He started all the way down to 14th. And there is the confirmation of your race victor. He was 9.5 seconds at one point ahead of Matt Acton. Clearly let off the throttle a little bit on that final lap because he was only 7.3 by the end. Matt Hodges was again was only a 10th of a second back from... I missed that one. Matt Acton, though, in 2nd place. Matt Hodges was in 3rd by the end of it. The Matt Attack. Adam Gale, 4th. Martin Brinkworth in 5th, but only just from Paul Scott. Dan Merchant in 7th place. Alex Everett in 8th. Michael Seal, 9th. Ian Crosby, 10th. Matt Emmons in 11th place. David Simon, pole position man for this race, unfortunately, down in 12th place. Jochen Siggert was a lap down. Miles Owens a lap down. And Paul Clist also a lap down. Alex Everett says, terrible night for me. Had no top end speed in race 1 and trying to fix that. Ended up killing the downforce, so no grip for race 2. We'll be bouncing back for next week. Well done, Colin, for the big win. Alex, you better be back from race for next week. And if you get a podium, obviously we'll be having a chat to you because we want to hear about the legends as well, because that's been a big success from what I've been seeing for Next Gen and obviously for you as well. So it's been brilliant to have you along with that. Now, we have a few people in the interview waiting room. I'll tell you what, let's bring in Michael Seal to have a chat and maybe ask about how his evening went. Michael Seal, I've dragged you into the commentary box just to have a little bit of a chat because you had good pace there in qualifying, especially qualified in 4th. The races didn't seem to go your way though.
Yeah, no, I've not been happy with the setup of the Porsche since the start of the series, really. And I've got single lap pace, but just struggling with it in race distance. And but I think I jumped the start in that previous one ever so fractionally and gave myself a stop and go.
Oh.
So then it would have fight back from there on in, but happy to be within 30 seconds of the leader. That would have been a good result.
I was going to say we must have missed that stop and go then from you in race 1. Unfortunately, I thought there was an incident or something, but yeah, absolutely gutted. But at the end of the day, you know, it's all for good fun, isn't it? And you have a lot of other things going on, haven't you? You got the BSR Monday and Tuesday. You're obviously heavily involved with Fast R in all sort of races. You're pretty much involved with everything that I commentate on. You must be a busy man in the sim racing world.
Yeah, I'm very busy at the moment. It is I've just started doing the BSR on a Monday and Tuesday in their MX-5s, and that's really good racing. But it takes a lot of work to keep up with some of the quick guys in that.
Does indeed, yeah. As you full well know, I can't do it. But you obviously doing a lot of deliveries as well.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of paints, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so involved with BSR is because I've done a lot of deliveries for the teams on the grid, and including yourself.
And it looks fantastic, I have to say, as well as a lot of the others do as well. But I'm very, very pleased with mine. So what is the crack then for this one? Are you hoping to get involved with a few more Next Gen leagues going forward? What sort of attracted you to Next Gen, I suppose, in the first place? Because I know you guys established yourself in the Porsches. What's kept you around, I suppose?
Or it is a whole Next Gen thing. All started back when they did their touring car league, and Freddie and David did it from Fast Star, and then they got me involved for the Porsches and really enjoyed them. It is really nice guys who run it. It's always good fun, and you can't complain with it. It's good fun racing.
Absolutely is. Yeah, I keep coming back for more, that's for sure. So Michael, thank you very much. Unlucky, great one-lap pace, but hopefully we'll see maybe a tweak of the setup for next time out.
Yep, thank you.
And that was Michael Seal, nice enough to come and have a chat to us. I don't see anybody else in the chat for now. So what I'll probably do is round out the evening, because I think everybody else is gone off. Thank you very much for watching another round of the GTE Grid Engineering Series. Round 5 and 6 have not disappointed here at Daytona. I hope you enjoyed me rambling on about how to drive a race car, even though I'm not extremely very good at it. I'm sure these guys could probably teach you a lot better than I can. My name's been Jack Oliphant. If you did enjoy it, then give it a like and a follow, a subscribe, do whatever you do to make sure that you're here next Friday for watching more. The Pure GT obviously is involved on a Wednesday night, and the invitational for the Grid Finder event that I've been running and mentioned a couple of times this evening is tomorrow back at Daytona. It's going to be a NASCAR Trucks event kicking off at 7 o'clock. Now that is over on Grid Finder's Twitch, which I don't know the username of, but I will have to find out tomorrow because I'm broadcasting it. I'll hopefully be able to get it broadcasted to Facebook and YouTube as well, but I think they're wanting just to stick it keep to Twitch. So if you haven't already, go and have a look at the Twitch. I'm also streaming on Twitch. If you didn't know, I don't really advertise it, but it's there. But yeah, that's what we'll be doing tomorrow. So thank you very much for tuning in. Well done to all the drivers, and good luck for testing